Texas rice once powered a $500 million economy and fed 13% of the nation. But in 2024, farmers are losing $258 for every acre they plant, guaranteed. More than 200,000 acres now lie abandoned, and this legendary rice belt faces a collapse the governor never saw coming. How did America's second largest rice powerhouse end up here, and what happens if no one steps in? Stretching from Beaumont in the east to Bay City on the Gulf, the Texas Rice Belt covers some of the richest agricultural land in the state. Counties such as Colorado, Wharton, Matagorda, and Jackson have anchored a tradition that goes back over a century. Texas is the nation's second largest rice producer, just behind Arkansas, and typically contributes 13 to 15% of all U.S. rice grown each year. This is not a fringe crop. The rice industry pumps $500 million into the Gulf Coast economy each year, supporting farmers, mill workers, truckers, equipment dealers, and countless small businesses in rural towns. The impact of rice reaches far beyond the fields. In towns like El Campo, Eagle Lake, and Ganado, schools, festivals, and local traditions revolve around the harvest. Processing centers in Bay City and El Campo have handled millions of pounds of grain each year, their operations tightly linked to the fate of area farms. For decades, the Texas Rice Belt has been a backbone for food security and rural prosperity. As this belt shrinks, the effects ripple outward, threatening the livelihoods of entire communities and putting a century-old regional identity at risk. The numbers that follow are not just statistics. They represent the future of this region and the people who call it home. On paper, the math for Texas rice farmers in 2024 is impossible to ignore. For every acre planted, the bill runs between $850 and $900. That figure covers seed, fertilizer, diesel, irrigation, and loan interest. Costs that have climbed steadily, with fertilizer up 40% since 2019 and diesel for irrigation pumps reaching $500 to $800 per acre. Yet, when the crop is harvested and hauled to the mill, the price on offer is just $13 to $15 per hundredweight, the lowest in 8 years. The break-even point sits far higher, at $18 to $20 per hundredweight. Under these conditions, every acre guarantees a loss. On average, $258.84 are lost before the first check is cut. Across the state, over 200,000 acres have been left idle or abandoned, as growers refuse to plant into a loss. The statewide ledger tells the same story. Total projected losses for Texas rice farmers this season exceed $100 million. No combination of yield, efficiency, or weather can make the numbers work. The deficit is built in. For families who have farmed rice for generations, the decision comes down to cold arithmetic. Planting rice now means signing up for a loss, no matter how hard you work or how well the crop grows. The economic foundation that once supported entire communities is eroding, acre by acre, ledger by ledger. At the heart of the Texas Rice Belt, family farms that once survived droughts, hurricanes, and market crashes now face a crisis without a way out. In Colorado County, a kitchen table is crowded with ledgers, bills, and the weight of impossible choices. The numbers tell a story of loss, 3 straight years in the red, with no hope of breaking even. Some families have watched $500,000 to $1 million disappear from their balance sheets since 2022. Equipment that once symbolized progress, a combine worth over $600,000, now sits idle, unsold, and unwanted. The land, laser leveled for rice, lies fallow. Bank letters arrive with a finality that no harvest can undo. For the first time in decades, lenders refuse to back another season. Crop loan denials for 2025 aren't just warnings, they are the end of the line. Chapter 12. Bankruptcy filings, once unthinkable for operations that survived the Great Depression, now appear in courthouse records across the Rice Belt. Generations who built their lives on these fields are forced to consider selling land or walking away. Younger growers who once imagined taking over the family farm see no future in rice. Some turn to solar leases or sell out to developers, trading a legacy for survival. The community's knowledge, passed down through a century of planting and harvest, is being lost as families exit the business. The ledger on the table doesn't just record debts and losses, it carries the end of a way of life. Fertilizer prices have climbed 40% since 2019, with nitrogen costs leading the surge. Seed prices are up 25% since 2020, and specialty varieties run even higher. Diesel needed for irrigation pumps and field work now costs between $500 and $800 per acre, draining budgets before the first seed is planted. Interest rates on operating loans have nearly doubled since 2021, making every borrowed dollar more expensive to repay. For many growers, the most daunting hurdle is water. The Gulf Coast Aquifer, once a reliable lifeline, is sinking under the strain of non-stop pumping. Wells that tapped water at 200 or 300 feet a decade ago now reach 800 to 1,000 feet. With drilling and outfitting, a single well topping $100,000. Pumping costs have soared to $200 to $400 per acre foot, compared to $50 to $75 just a few years ago. Maps tracking saltwater intrusion show the threat creeping inland, putting even more pressure on already stressed groundwater supplies. A Gulf Coast hydrologist explains that these pressures are not temporary spikes. They are part of a feedback loop. Every new well drilled deeper, every dollar spent on diesel, and every acre-foot pumped from the aquifer pushes the system closer to collapse. The infrastructure built for a different era, laser-leveled fields, rice-specific pumps, irrigation canals, offers no easy path for conversion or waiting out the storm. For many, the technical trap is now as tight as the financial one. Processing plants built to handle up to 20 million hundredweight of rice each year now operate at less than half that volume. In towns like Bay City and El Campo, the silence inside once busy mills is broken only by the hum of idle machinery. A mill executive says, "We cannot keep doors open if the crop does not come in." On a map of the Texas Rice Belt, the drop in deliveries is clear. Wharton, Matagorda, Colorado, and Jackson counties, traditionally the heart of the rice supply, show acres left unharvested. With throughput down by 40 to 50%, fixed costs pile up while revenue dries out. This is not just a bad year, it is a domino effect. As farms shut down, mills lose the volume needed to cover operating expenses, threatening the last link between Texas growers and the market. The entire supply chain stands on the edge, waiting for relief that may never come. Flooded rice fields have long served as the backbone of Gulf Coast wetlands, sustaining millions of migratory ducks and geese each winter. As rice acreage drops toward the critical threshold of 100,000 acres, conservation groups warn that habitat loss will soon outpace any recovery efforts. A Ducks Unlimited representative explains that every acre of rice lost means less food and shelter for waterfowl, and the Central Flyway is at risk of losing up to half its wintering birds if current trends continue. The economic impact reaches beyond wildlife. Waterfowl hunting and birdwatching once brought in $60 million to $120 million a year, supporting guides, outfitters, and small businesses across the region. A Texas A&M economist lays out 3 scenarios. If no action is taken within the next 30 days, the industry could cross a point of no return, with irreversible habitat losses and shuttered mills. Emergency stabilization in the next 60 days through loan guarantees and targeted payments could keep enough land in rice to hold the line for 2025. Structural rescue, requiring action within 120 days, would mean investing in research, water management, and new incentives to rebuild habitat and economic stability. The clock is ticking, and the choices made in the coming weeks will decide whether Texas rice country remains a vital part of the landscape or fades into memory. Today, Texas rice fields stand empty, while global imports fill American shelves. As spring 2025 approaches, the future of a $500 million industry hangs by a thread. What is lost is not just crops, it is heritage, habitat, and hope. This time, the tipping point is now. What happens next is up to us.